When discussing the MVP award, analysts and fans often start out with two players, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, and understandably so. These two guys have been nothing short of spectacular the past 2 years and have won each of the last two MVP awards. Each led their team to a number one seed in the playoffs and had magical seasons for their respective franchises. However, they are not the only two players that can win the MVP award, and there are several players who have legitimate cases as to why they could win the MVP award this year. That brings us to the topic of today's video, as we will be discussing several dark horse candidates that take home the 2020 Most Valuable Player award. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. And we start today's video off in Philadelphia to discuss quarterback Carson Wentz. Back in 2017, Carson was the frontrunner for the award, and he is definitely a dark horse contender in 2020. Nobody even mentions the possibility of Carson winning because everyone is too caught up in other quarterbacks or a few running backs. The Eagles like it better that way when they're considered underdogs, and here's a few reasons why Wentz could win it in 2020. Back in 2017, he had 33 touchdown passes and had neither a 1,000-yard running back or a 1,000-yard wide receiver. His leading receiver was Zach Ertz, who had 74 catches for 824 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's not bad by any means, but you wouldn't think that would be the number one receiving threat from a Super Bowl champion team. Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar also added 789 and 768 yards respectively, but this team didn't have great receivers even back then. In 2020, Wentz will have Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Reagor, and Miles Sanders to throw the ball to, and even if none of these guys get over 1,000 receiving yards, they will still be better targets than what Wentz had in 2017. Another factor that plays into a player winning the MVP is schedule, and the Eagles have a favorable schedule for Carson to do so. They play 6 games against the Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins, and those pass defenses are not good to say the least. They also get to play the Bengals and Cardinals defenses, both of which finished in the lower 10 of points allowed in 2019. Wentz has decent weapons, has a favorable schedule, is a good player in himself, and assuming he stays healthy, could be in for a very big 2020. Next, we go to Atlanta to discuss Matt Ryan, who is most definitely a dark horse MVP candidate in 2020. With Tom Brady entering the division and Drew Brees already being there, analysts and fans have been speculating for months now about the Saints-Bucs games, and understandably so. When these two square off, they will have combined for nearly 1,100 regular season passing touchdowns, which and I think this is fair to say, will never happen again, at least not for another 20 to 30 years, if not ever. It is rare territory and deserves to be talked about, but people have forgotten how good Matt Ryan is. In the last 4 years, Matt has thrown for nearly 120 touchdown passes, won an MVP award, and even took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. In 2016 and 2018, he threw for 38 and 35 touchdown passes, and if the success in the even years happens again, then he will be in for a very good 2020. The Falcons will need to put up points to keep up with the Bucs and Saints, and with the Panthers secondary not being that good, I think it's fair to say Matt Ryan will put up some gaudy numbers in division games. With that accounting for nearly 40% of the schedule, he will have a head start on a player like Aaron Rodgers, who has to deal with the Vikings and Bears defenses as opposed to the Bucs and Panthers, who gave up 449 and 470 points in 2019. The Falcons also have 10 of 11 players on offense as former first-round picks, so we know the talent is there for this team. Ryan is in a perfect position to have a great 2020 and to completely fly under the radar. I really do think he will be a great fantasy option in 2020 redraft leagues because everything points to him having a 30-plus touchdown passing season. Whether or not he wins the MVP will come down to his ability to win games, because an MVP award won't go to a quarterback on a team that's 7-9 or 8-8. Ryan will have to win at least 11 games in order to do so, and that's something I don't doubt from him and the Falcons. Next, we go to the desert, and I'm including Kyler Murray in today's video for a few reasons. The last 2 MVPs and 3 had Wentz not torn his ACL would have been all second-year quarterbacks. There's a clear trend going on in the late 10s into the 20s, and that's a big reason why Kyler makes today's video. Yes, I know this may be a little premature, but on the same side of the coin, no one would have thought Lamar would have won a year ago either. Kyler as a rookie had over 4,200 yards, and Lamar in his MVP season had 4,300 yards. Now there's a huge discrepancy in passing attempt and yards per play, but the point I'm trying to make here is Kyler had a lot of yards as a rookie. He will have considerable weapons to work with in DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, and of course the legend Larry Fitzgerald. There will be a second-year quarterback that takes a major leap in 2020, and at this point it's speculating which one that will be. Kyler didn't have great weapons to throw to in 2019 outside of Fitz and Kirk, as some others he was throwing to went by the names of David Johnson, Damiere Byrd, Pharaoh Cooper, and Charles Clay. DeAndre Hopkins should account for over 1,200 yards alone, and that will be a huge stepping stone in Kyler's career. A problem I think Kyler could run into is he plays the 49ers twice, and they aren't exactly a friendly defense to go against, like the Panthers or Bucs for Matt Ryan or the Giants for Carson Wentz. That's an obstacle Kyler will have to overcome if he wants to be respected amongst the NFL's best quarterbacks. He is expected to take a leap in 2020, but is a dark horse candidate for the MVP award as of now. There's no reason Kyler can't build on last year and have over 4,500 total yards in 2020. And sticking with second-year quarterbacks, we go from Arizona to Denver to discuss Drew Lock. Part of an MVP's success is having solid weapons around them, and that couldn't be more true with Mahomes in 2018 and Lamar in 2019. Each player was spectacular, but they also had weapons that greatly benefited them. Lock heads into 2020 with a plethora of weapons at his disposal, and will be looking to tear up the AFC this year. He has Noah Fant, Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler to throw the ball to, and can hand the ball off to Phillip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon at any time. Drew was 4-1 as a starter last year, and will be looking to make the next step in his NFL career. The Broncos have been getting significantly more buzz this offseason than they have since the Super Bowl back in 2015, and understandably so. All of these players are young, and will be Denver's core for the next couple of seasons. Like with everything, money will complicate things down the road, but as of now, a core of the players we mentioned will be around through probably at least the 2022 season, if not longer. Sutton had over 1,100 yards in a Pro Bowl appearance in 2019, and Noah Fant had over 500 yards, which is very good for a rookie tight end. Von Miller has said in interviews how good of a player Lock is, and Von knows a thing or two about good quarterbacks, having played with Peyton Manning for 4 years and having played against both Mahomes and Brady for quite some time. Drew Lock will always be overshadowed by Mahomes being in the same division, but with the weapons he has and the promise he showed down the stretch of last season, Lock looks to be in for a big 2020. And next, as you guys saw in the thumbnail, we head to New Orleans to discuss Drew Brees. Drew might not be the most low-key or dark horse MVP candidate because his team is consistently in the playoffs and he has Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara on his team. However, he does deserve a spot in today's video because even though he has no MVPs in his career, he still could get one in 2020 at the age of 41. Drew is a 13-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro, has led the league in passing yards 7 times, has led the league in passing touchdowns 4 times, and is the all-time NFL leader in passing yards, completions, and touchdown passes. He is a first-ballot Hall of Famer with or without this award, but I can say for everyone, it would be nice to see Drew win this just once before he hangs his cleats up. He has accomplished everything else a quarterback can, and this would be the cherry on top. The Saints did him a service by adding Emmanuel Sanders this offseason, so he will have a legitimate number 2 wideout in 2020. They of course have Alvin Kamara as a receiving option, as he had exactly 81 catches in each of his first 3 years of his career. And we know how good Michael Thomas is, as he has 274 receptions in the last 2 years alone. Drew is in a similar situation as Matt Ryan, whereas the division's defenses aren't that good, and he will be able to pad his numbers in those games. There's a good chance at least one of those games ends up with 75 to 80 total points, and that Drew could finish with over 400 yards and 4 to 5 touchdowns in one of those games. A few games like that add up quickly, and Drew, barring injury, could end up throwing for nearly 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns at the age of 41. And the final player for today's video, and I never thought I would have Ryan Tannehill and MVP in the same sentence, but here we are. Tannehill, whether you want to admit it or not, after his 2019 success, is a dark horse MVP candidate heading into the year. In games he started last year, he threw for 22 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions, and translating that to a full 16-game season, he would have thrown for 35 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions, which is absurd and definitely MVP caliber. He would have also added another 6 touchdowns on the ground, giving him a full 16-game total of 4,400 yards and 41 touchdowns. Now, can Tannehill produce like that in 2020? We will soon find that out, and the progression of A.J. Brown and how his chemistry with Jonnu Smith is this year will largely depend on that as well. Tannehill is looking to get back to the playoffs with the Titans in 2020, and with the offense they have with Ryan, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown, they should be able to get there. And with that being said, That's all I have for today's video. I didn't include any running backs because I don't think outside of Christian McCaffrey, any will be in serious contention. I don't think the Giants win enough games for Saquon to be seriously considered, and I don't think any other back outside of those two would be an option. Derrick Henry would be a stretch because I personally think if he ever came to close to X amount of yards, defenses would do any and everything to make sure they don't get beat by him, forcing the Titans to throw the ball with Ryan Tannehill. Now, if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your guys' day. There will not be a video Monday like there usually is. I apologize about that. I'll let you guys know more about that in a post, but please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.